one, and these milestones or benchmarks are kind of keeping the undefeated stretch alive and making it more historic with each win. We know you a little bit. Do you ever talk about that at all? Is that significant in any way, or is it truly like they just said, just flush it and move on to the next?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to be afraid to talk about things around the team. I don't want to purposefully avoid them. And so I think I mentioned it. I mean, we talk about RPI every week.
Right.
The team knows. It actually came up in the last meeting without me mentioning it. The polls themselves, they just came out this week, and it's exciting. And these players work really, really hard. And so I think it's nice to celebrate. And so I think we've had this sort of weekly cadence about talking about, all right, this is what we're ranked in this poll, this is what we're ranked in this poll, this is our RPI, great job, and let's move on. When it comes to something like our start, a little bit, for me, a season's judged at the end, right? And we're going to play 19 regular season matches, and we're 9 in, so we're not even halfway in. And so I want to celebrate, one part of our season is complete in our non-conference as we break it up. I'm proud of what we did. Lining that up against past teams, I think that's maybe what I want to focus on in the off season versus the season, because that doesn't, if we don't take care of business in the second half of the season, that won't mean anything. And as we approach weekends, no matter what we do on Thursday, if we have a really great performance, the first thing they're probably gonna hear from me after great job is let's back this up on Sunday. And so I just think we're about to survive a season of 19, 20 matches and playing most of those twice a week. I think you have to kind of just stay in the moment and approach each game separately, and then there's plenty of time to reflect upon anything we did or didn't accomplish afterward.
Just going back to that last match, I mean, how were they able to pull it off being down a player for more than a half? And I guess what impressed you about that effort overall?
It was an interesting game in that I thought we came out pretty flat and just not at our best. I was slightly disappointed with our first 25-30 minutes, and for whatever reason, once we had that red card and that moment of adversity, from that second onward, I thought we were excellent. And I thought the team and individual players and the bench and everyone just really stepped up in that moment. And I don't know what to attribute that to. Hopefully, it's something within our culture there. But they, Sindra, our athletic trainer, after the match, she just kind of walked over to us coaches and kind of was shaking her head and smiling. And I don't know the exact term, but she's like, "Man, that is a blank group of gritty ass women," and she's right. In that, that evening, the program stepped up and did something that's hard to do, right? So you don't know how familiar anyone is with this game and what it's supposed to happen when you're down a player for 60 minutes against, a top 30 ranked opponent conference opponent on the road. But most of the time you're not going to come out with a victory. And something I mentioned after the match, which to me is just as if not more impressive, is we came out on the right side of every statistic on that as well. So there's the shots. I think there's a third-party company that looks into those statistics, and it's probably a little bit more accurate than the home team kind of doing them in the box. And we over doubled their shots, and 100 more completed passes and entries into the final third, stuff we look at. I think we doubled or tripled, and that is where I'm like, that is a performance, right? When you can play a great opponent on the road in conference, both teams wanting to get off on a good start and still impose a lot of your tactics and your will on the opponent. So we celebrated that one more than we'll probably celebrate the average match, even against good opponents, because I think it was differentiated. I think it was special in many ways, and one that we'll remember for a while. But back to the point I made a couple minutes ago, now it's on to the next. And but Thursday night was a great performance by the team.
Do you practice a man down?
You try to do some of that stuff, man up, man down, up a goal, down a goal. We do less situational stuff than most teams, I would say. And if you want to, my why on maybe focusing on less than others is you have a finite amount of time. It's really, really hard to simulate any sort of different scenario that you might see in a match. And as much as you try to simulate it, it's not going to be the same as the real thing, right? Just not. Thankfully, I think tactically and how we coach our team and how we set up our team, we were able to make an adjustment that impacted one player more than most of the rest, and so that the rest of the team can largely do what they're trained to do in any other scenario. It just happened to work out. The person who had to make the adjustment, I thought, made it in a great manner, and then the flow of the game just kind of continued to fall in our favor, right? If we go down a man in the next match, I think it would be hard to simulate because you don't know what the other team's going to do. But yeah, we talk through scenarios, we try to train them to some extent, but I don't think we had recreated anything quite like that. The players just were able to respond in the moment.
I suppose I'm talking mostly about Faith and Mary, I guess, but for freshmen to be scoring right away and repetitively, is that uncommon? Is that common? Does that depend on the player? How do you, I mean, it has to be something you like.
Yeah. I think in our sport, more than some, a freshman, the right situation could come in and impact right away. Now, impact has a lot of different, levels to it. This particular team, I don't think a freshman's been starting. Is that correct? Whereas last year, I think we had, if you count Soph as a redshirt, I think 5 starting in most matches. I don't think either is particularly normal, right? Like, I haven't coached many teams that have 5 freshmen starting pretty every match, and this might be the first one that I've coached that had 0 in the starting lineup. We've been fortunate that we've been able to trot out the same starting lineup and have that continuity and that relative health. But those freshmen are continuing to grow, and if you look at the 2 people who were up here before, right, Kate and Jordan, they're better players this year than they were last year for us. Jordan went from a complimentary role, coming off the bench, stepping up huge in the Big 12 tournament, to a player now that I think might lead our team in minutes, or very, very darn close, if not. And that's kind of the progression that is normal. There's the outliers in both directions. Unfortunately, I'm not sure we're going to see Mary the rest of the year. I don't think I'm probably breaking too much news. She had an unfortunate injury. She was just coming on. She, up until Sunday, she was the only player to score on Florida State all season. And she took a goal very well against Liberty right before she got hurt. I think Jordan has scored multiple goals. Because of her red card, she's out on Thursday. And I think Faith, the other freshman, is probably going to assume a lot of Jordan's role, right? And it's nice to have that depth. In a perfect world, you want all players as experienced as possible, but that's not really the real world. What I have said about this freshman class from day one is, I think as a whole, and particularly the ones who are playing probably the most, they came in ready, and that is mental, physical, emotional, all that, but they came in fit, and that gives them a leg up on a lot of other people. And so I think just as a whole, this team can hurt you in a few more ways than last year's team. And I think we have 6 players now who have scored multiple goals on the season. I think we have 6 players who have multiple assists on the season, and only 2 of those kind of are a shared person, right? And so, this past game, Caroline scored our goal. I think the game before at Liberty, it was Mary. It was someone help me out here. Olivia and Jill. The game before was Lexi and Sage, and so the best teams usually have someone who scores 8, 10, 12, 14 goals. I think we have a few players who are going to end up with stats pretty high up there, but I think one thing that makes us a little bit different, a little bit unique, is that it doesn't have to be the same player every week, and we can hurt you or threaten you in a lot of different ways. And so whether that's freshmen or returning players, as a coach, I think, and as a team, it's empowering that it doesn't always have to come from the same person.
You mentioned Caroline. Are you using her the same as last year, or is it a different way you're using her this year?
Yeah, I think we switched shapes about halfway through last season, and it pushed Caroline and what we'll call our wing backs a little bit higher up the field. And so I think that particular switch, sets Caroline up for success. Emily Tobin and Lydia on the right side, because like we've got some production out of that side too. I think Carol is a personality player for us, right? She's a difference maker, and so you have, we have a system that has like some probably more parameters and guardrails and rigidity than some. But then I've always said, like, if you have players that are personality players or differentiated in some way, they can change those parameters. And I think Caroline has a lot of leeway within our system, that her special skill set can we try to utilize her and all the things that she's different at, and let her go express them on the field. So I think our system is set up really well for a player with her particular strengths. And then, I think our growth together, right? Carol and us as a coaching staff, and the longer we get to know each other, I think, that can extend to some other players on our team. We start figuring out, where those parameters can change, and they can make that position their own.
With Baylor, is it odd a year and a half into your time here playing a new conference opponent for the first time, and what are your expectations for that?
So even last season, you don't play 4 teams in conference.
Yeah.
Last year, 2 of those 4 teams we didn't play. We then played in the conference tournament in Texas Tech and TCU. So I think the only programs we haven't seen yet are Houston and Baylor. A little quirk of the system, we don't play, or the scheduling, we don't play Houston again this year. And so, this will be our first time seeing Baylor. We played right after them, I think twice during the Big 12 tournament last year. And so when we're getting to CPKC and the players are going back to the locker room, the coaches are going out and just watching the match before. So I think we saw them twice there. They just played Texas Tech on Friday, right? So that was the day that we were off. So we were able to kind of watch that in real time. Very, very good team, right? And having a really positive season. I think they just had their first loss this past weekend in a very close match against a very good team. So I think they're very good on the ball. I think they have an identity as a program that they really buy into. I think they've added a little bit of talent and danger into on their roster, and it's going to be a really challenging match for sure.
I'm gonna go back to Castens. We know what a bomb she has for her left foot, switching the field and getting it ahead, but her precision with her right foot is so good. Do you see that every day in practice?
She certainly favors her left foot. Yeah. So, but like, I think, both her goals are with the right foot, if I'm not mistaken. And she kind of, addresses the ball differently with her right than her left, partly because of probably the limitations, right? And so she can really sting the ball with her left. If you're not quite as confident with your other foot, then maybe you change your technique, and you go with a little bit more finesse. And that particular technique has, a lot of danger in that she can also kind of texture it over the goalkeeper towards the far post. I think a lot of that was also due to her positioning. We talk to our team a lot of times, especially on the weak side, of not getting caught too far outside of the frame of the goal. So both of her goals were kind of inside the frame. She's just a very good player, right? And understands time and place pretty darn well, and what the situation calls for. She has more variety than a lot of players out there in different ways. She can hurt an opponent short, long, 1-touch, 2-touch, do it by herself, and so she is one of those players too that, for whatever reason, as soon as we went down to play her, it felt like she just, I felt the energy from her. She was on our side of now is time to really turn it on. My team needs me. And so it's cool when you see that on the field, and it kind of permeates for 40, 50, 60 minutes, and then she's also able to make the big play in the match too.
Josh had a couple that he wanted me to ask you. State of the Union, after 3 road games, where do you feel like this program is right now, with 3 home games coming up?
I'm really impressed with how we handled that road chunk. Those two trips heading east were not easy, right? And so Yale was I think in the end, an 11-hour trip to get out there. I think Liberty was a 12-hour trip to get out there. We went out a day early, which you thought was probably the thing that would help us have the best chance, but you never quite know because it's outside our normal sort of rhythm of road matches. Yale was our first turf match. Liberty doesn't lose much over there. They play everyone tough. So I thought getting through those two was a real challenge. And then we had a short turnaround, right? So I think our flight from Charlotte, North Carolina, took off close to 11 p.m. on Sunday night, right? After we had to just bust 3.5 hours to get there. And then we get back, they probably get back in their beds at 2 a.m. on Monday morning. And then on Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock, we're rolling out of here to go play at Oklahoma State. And so I was nervous as the person who put together the schedule and is ultimately responsible for the schedule. Usually as you head into conference play, you give yourself a little bit of a buffer. So whether it's you give yourself an extra couple days, or you play at home, or you play a less competitive match, well, we did the exact opposite. We went on a long road trip against a very good team, short turnaround, and we don't talk about it as a program. Like we go out of our way to say, hey, just tackle whatever challenges ahead of you. But I had it in the back of my mind, man, did I set up this team for a little bit of failure? And so, again, this team's met every challenge, which I've been impressed by. As you go deeper into a season, you face more adversity and different challenges, and you get a little bit more exposure of what kind of team you are, what the character of your program looks like. And each test we've done so well. We've done well. I think we have a lot of scenarios we haven't seen yet. And so whether that's what we're going to look like after we lose, which is inevitably going to happen. We haven't had to chase too many games so far, and so I don't know what the exact statistic is, but I think that we've only been trailing for something like 10 or 15 minutes all season. Again, we went down against Florida State, and then we got an equalizer pretty shortly after, and so I wish we would have had that exposure, because usually when it's the first time, you probably don't do your best in dealing with it. Hopefully we've helped prepare the team to face that challenge when it comes. But there's still a lot ahead. I don't want to get over our skis, right? We've played less than half the season, and we're starting to reap some recognition and attention, and that's great. Like these players deserve it, but we haven't really done anything yet. All the big stuff's kind of ahead. We've just set the table to allow ourselves to hopefully see this thing through. But it's a really great group. Really, as you asked, State of the Union, it's a really great group to work with. This team gets along as well as any team I've seen. They're not as loud and boisterous in that way, but they just, we look at each other as coaches oftentimes and say, hey, this group really seems to like each other. When you go through a season, you deal with lots of stuff as a coach, and none with the least, the one that's most often is playing time and travel squads. And this group has been really, really professional about sort of role identity, and if the role's not exactly what you want, working to try to change that, but still being a great teammate, and having the team and the program as the guiding light. And so, yeah, ask me that question again when the obvious adversity hits. My bet is that this team will deal with it all right, but right now I'm happy with where we are.
You mentioned the continuity of same 11 every game so far this year. What's the value of that benefit of having that same group start for you?
Yeah, it's rare. I don't think I've ever coached a team that's had this kind of continuity. It's not by design, but I'm certainly not complaining. I think a really important variable on a team's success over the long run, and especially as you kind of are on the back half of the season, is role identity. Embracing whatever it is that you're going to do, and bringing as much value as you can to that particular role. It's harder when that role is still in flux and gray. It's harder to embrace something that you haven't established. So whether it's just okay, I'm a substitute and my role is going to be a game changer in this way, or hold serve in that way, I think these players have kind of settled into that particular, whatever their role may be. I also think they've settled into when they're going to come into a game, right? So not just are we starting the same group, I think our substitution patterns are pretty similar. So at 20 some minutes into the game, our forwards our first set of forwards is probably going to come in. Our right wing back's going to come in. our 10 might come in, and that doesn't change much over a game either. And so, just those players, if you're on the field knowing that a break's coming, if you're coming on as a sub, knowing about when you should warm up and getting your body ready and food or whatever it may be, that's probably the advantage of the continuity. I don't want anyone to get complacent either way, though. So whether it's changing your role for the better, or not anyone's role is concrete either, where they can't lose it. You don't want complacency to set in. You just want the benefits. And right now, I think we have the groups kind of wired the right way to enjoy the benefits and not see the complacency.
You got a Big 12 championship rematch coming up on Sunday. What is the opportunity for the team in that game?
Well, the opportunity for TCU is to exact a measure of revenge, probably, and I'm sure they're going to talk through that. I think for us, it's there's a lot of things. I think there is an opportunity for if you're going to talk about RPI, you're going to talk about how those games can help you and how a top 25 win can catapult you in a lot of different ways. If you're I don't want our team to dismiss the possibility for a conference championship, right? I don't think that is off the table. And so if you're going to even think about those things, you probably got to go through a program like that. I think for me, the biggest thing is I think TCU is a measuring stick and probably the measuring stick within our conference. That has, since the Big 12's, the last couple of years in the Big 12, they've been the premier program, and plenty of teams have challenged them, and some have come out on top here and there, but they're probably the one. And so we aspire to be in that conversation going forward for the long run every year, and the only way to have that be realistic is to see where you are against the best. And if you're short in any way, knowing it, understanding it, and working to change it. And so we have an opportunity there to compete against the best and see where things shake out. I think it takes a little bit of the edge off, right? Just let's go and see what happens versus trying to hold serve. Now it's okay, let's go win a big one. And I think if I flip it and think about what they're going to be telling their team heading in, I'm sure they're going to want to make a statement as well.
You've always been about players earning their time, whether it's starting, minutes overall. Olivia was in kind of a battle at the beginning of the year in that back line of defense to, get her spot. She'd been a starter before. Her game's taken off. She's done national team of the week and, accolades to go with it. And it seems like her performance and confidence are up. What have you seen out of her over the course of the year so far?
Playing center back in this system under this coaching staff, and I'll point mostly at myself on that one, is not the easiest task, right? So much of our communication and teaching and coaching is about being in the right time, being in the right place as close to 100% of the time as possible before anything bad can happen. And then there's a million different scenarios of how that can, a given different picture can change. And that position more than any, outside of maybe goalkeeper, is is the least, what word am I looking for here? When you make a mistake, it gets magnified. Unforgiving. That is the exact word I was looking for. So that's an unforgiving position in the moment, and it's an unforgiving position as it relates to coaching. You're going to get a lot of it. Fiona has, being new to this system and being called on to play that many minutes, she has been, received a ton of coaching as well. I think with Liv, the talent is there. She's a great kid, a great person. She's a team player. She has to just continue to double down on the small things and the little details. And whenever she's come up short in those situations or hasn't been perfect, we've given the coaching point. She always comes in for extra coaching, wants to get better, and then her response has been really good. I think she was excellent against Oklahoma State. I thought she was excellent against Florida State. Sometimes for her, it seems like the better the competition, the bigger the challenge, the more she steps up. I hope and think she'll continue with that consistency, that same intensity game over game, It's a long season and it's unrelenting. And yeah, all three of those center backs, quite honestly, between Liv, Jordy, and Fiona, have a pressure that's different than a lot of positions. And I think all three of them have worked very well to deal with that pressure, and if, when mistakes happen, to try to not have that same one happen again. I think we're purposefully and intentionally trying to figure out if we can work other people into that rotation, because it's hard to survive playing 90 minutes every single match for the rest of the way. I hope Brooke gets a crack at this. I think if we not gone down a player, I do think she probably would have seen the field last game. And then others, whether it's Molly, the freshman, Becca, who we gave a chance against Liberty, I don't want to be beholden only to 3 players at that position. And so if you see substitutions going forward, it might not be because anyone made a mistake or we're disappointed. I think we're proactively trying to figure out, can we build a little depth there?
You have Baylor coming up before the TCU game. How do you get the team to not overlook a good Baylor team?
I'm not really. I don't think this team's one that's going to fall into the category of doing much overlooking in general. They've been really good in that way. They've probably had other opportunities to look past blank for blank. I think if we want to get their attention, which I'm pretty good at, is Baylor's top 20 RPI in the country right now. So if we are not in the position to overlook a top 20 team, period, end of sentence. And I don't think we'll have to worry about that. It's a Thursday night game, which tends to easily, it helps the other team too, kind of find that energy and that excitement. But I hope our crowd's been great this season. I hope that another one happens. I can't say that we're going to play great on Thursday, but if we don't, I don't think it's because we're overlooking them.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, Coach. Thanks, Nate.
Rock chalk.